Mm.
So, gentlemen, today we have with us Ranjan Das. Ranjan is senior to me, 1 or 2 batches in FTI, and he specialized in editing, like the way I specialize in cinematography. And then the interest grows, and we diversify ourselves. So he has been directing TV serials and making corporate films and other kind of work. And simultaneously, he also enjoy teaching. So he do share his experience with the student.
Mhm.
So I saw, I was thinking that I will contact him, and finally I did. And these are the 2 images which he posted on his timeline at some point, a couple of weeks back. And that's how I got the idea that he would be the right person to discuss with you people in terms of the image to convert into a story and how that can trigger a story for you. So these 2 images which I have sent it to you, around 8 to 9 students today have sent their assignments, and we will take one by one. I would share that file with you people, and we will take one by one, and we'll see how we can go ahead. So Ranjan, before we start, you could address them whatever you feel like.
Yeah, I am a alumnus of FTI, as Naresh just told you, and I specialized in editing, and I edited for 10 years, and then I grew tired of editing for the very simple reason that the kind of stuff that I was doing was not exciting enough in Calcutta. I was in Calcutta. Then I migrated to Bombay. And even before migrating to Bombay, in Calcutta, I switched over to writing screenplays and getting in making television serials, which I enjoyed in the sense mini series, not the lengthy serials. And when I came to Bombay to help out a friend in writing a feature film script, I came to Bombay for 1 month, but I stayed back. It has been now 16 years, more than 16 years that I've been in Bombay with my family, and I have worked on 4 feature films and a whole lot of television, Hindi television shows, single episode fictions, not serials. Okay, I've been in Jakarta, also Indonesia. They have a huge industry there, television industry. I've written for them also, and along with it, I've been working on a lot of other feature films which never got made, and a few other few films which got made. Okay, that is what happens when it comes to feature films. You work on a lot of projects, but very few materialize eventually. But you have to keep on walking. You cannot get down from the bus. That is the biggest challenge. Okay, alongside you do whatever is commensurate with your passion, and try to survive wherever you are, in whatever city you are in. So I also have been teaching, and I've been associated with a lot of organizations. I've conducted mostly screenplay writing workshops and direction workshops, filmmaking workshops in Port Blair, in Bangalore, in Goa. I've been going to Goa. There's been a private film school in Goa. I've been going there for the last 6 years, and Bombay, of course, and in Daman, and recently in Gujarat, Baroda. So that is what I've been doing, and also online classes in the last 1.5 years. Different universities, MIT University in Pune and Flame University in Pune, they have been calling me to conduct online classes. So that is what I've been doing. Online, all of us have been doing online classes, of course, for the last 1.5 years because of the COVID situation. So now I'm here with you, engaging with you online again, and I believe all of your FTI aspirants. FTI is a premier film institution that all of you know, and the competition is quite tough in the sense a lot of students want to get into FTI. I think the Naresh is a common course now, not common in the common examination now. Either
Yeah,
for SRFTI
yeah,
and FTI. You know,
correct. It's a joint
I
entrance. That's a
Acha,
good
you
thing. That's a good thing.
so acha, Samia Sen Sharma,
He
you
said
are
that
also from
he's from
Jadavpur
the
University. Acha. Acha, what subject you specialized in, Samia?
I specialize. I am studying Bengali literature, master's first year. I admitted.
Acha, I studied comparative literature. We are
Yes, yes.
neighbors
Comparative
actually.
literature is the branch. Same building, same building, same
Same building,
year.
yeah, same building. So
Yeah.
wonderful memories I have from those days. Anyway, so yeah, so the competition is quite tough, but thanks to Naresh, he has been conducting this course for the last, I think, a couple of years, maybe,
Yes,
where
yes, we have been doing
2 years I was helping out aspiring students to get into FTI through a rigorous course of which involves training and acquainting them with the kind of questions that FTI might ask you the entrance exam. Okay, so यहाँ पे और एक चीज मैं बोलना चाहता हूँ कि क्या है कभी कभी क्या होता है कि sometimes you might feel as it happened with me, I tried twice. First time I could not get in. Okay, and I felt the written exam, the questions in the written exam were very easy. I felt so I'll definitely get in. Then I discovered that I couldn't pass the written exam. I got very disheartened. So please don't get disheartened. We have friends who have tried for 3 years, 4 years, including Rajkumar Irani. Yeah, he have been trying to get into FTI for so many years. Ultimately, got into editing. There's a friend of ours who tried for 8 years. ओके, सो 1-2 साल तो चली जाता है कोई भी डिसिप्लिन में, और कभी कभी क्या है एग्जाम इतना फैंटास्टिक था फिर भी मुझे नहीं मिला. Okay, second year again, when I sat for the written exams again, I felt कि यार ये तो similarly बहुत easy है. That means I'll not get in, but somehow I got in. So it's like that. The competition becomes very tough in the sense because everybody is preparing, everybody is geared towards getting into the school, the film school. Okay,
so
and of course,
I would suggest that I will share that Word file which I have done on the thing, and one by one I would invite students, and they would read it out for you, and then you point out where exactly they are going and how that. So we will go one by one. So I will share the screen of that thing with you so that you can continue. Yeah. So here we are. So let me just make it little more zoom in here. So file view. Okay. So okay. So guys, first gentleman is Arvind.
Just a moment.
Please.
Hello, yeah.
So first gentleman is Arvind Dhakne. He's from Pune itself, I suppose.
Okay.
And Arvind, would you read out your stuff which is being written over here, so that
सर
yeah, please.
सर थोड़ा जूम करेंगे क्या?
जूम किया हुआ है ये, मैंने जूम किया हुआ है काफी जो है ये. इसको मैं और थोड़ा सा जूम इन कर देता हूँ, आप कहते हैं तो.
ठीक है सर. ओके सर, I can read sir.
Okay, perfect. Okay, please.
Ajay, before Arvind, before you start reading, just introduce yourself in one line. Where are you from and what you're doing right now, so we get a little more familiar.
Yes sir. Yes. I am Arvind Dhakne. I am from Pune, Maharashtra.
Ajay.
And I am a secondary school teacher.
Okay.
Yes sir.
Okay.
Is it sufficient?
Yeah.
Okay sir. My story name is Damini, Sparks and Change View. Damini is a single mother. In college, she was a smart and obedient girl. Her dream was to become an officer of UPSC and help the poor and helpless people. When she was in the last year of graduation, she loves a gentleman named Prem. He was her neighbor and working in a factory. He also loves her a lot. She becomes pregnant before her love turned into marriage. This was shocking news for them, but not bad news for them.
Just a moment. This was shocking news for the couple. Is that so?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So they got shocked, but they were also very glad. But it was not bad news for them. Okay. Then.
Yes, sir. Because they are not married, so this is shocking news for them.
Right. Okay.
But not bad news for them, and they decided to grow their child. So Damini and Prem told their parent about their love, but because of intercaste, they refused the proposal and they told her to think about her younger sister.
Yeah.
Then Prem and Damini decided to get married, but Prem was on his way to the factory when he had an accident and died on the spot. It was a major shock for Damini, but she decided to be a single parent.
Mm.
Her parent not support her. After a tireless effort, she got a temporary job at bank. She gives birth to a cute baby boy. She had a hard time dealing with people. When she met poor and helpless people, she felt very sorry for them.
Mhm.
Then she turned towards her aim of IS officer.
Mm.
A job in bank, raising a child, and studying UPSC seemed to be problem for her.
Mm.
She took long time for study.
Mm.
She attached the exam 3 times. She attended the exam 3 times in a 7 years, but could not pass.
Mm.
But she did not want to give up the dream.
Mm.
She won for the fourth time and crack exams and interview of UPSC. And now she packed her luggage and her son in a cycle rickshaw. She going to a railway station, and when she reached at railway station, she turned back and she had old memories.
Okay, so yeah, so there's just few clarifications because of certain things which lacks a little clarity. So they decide to get married,
Yes, sir.
isn't it? And she became
Yes.
pregnant before her love turned into marriage. This is shocking news. The parents were against because it belonged to different castes. Okay, and the husband. Do they get married? I mean, that is not very clear. Then Prem and Damini decided to get married. You have written. Okay.
So they decided.
They decided. Do they get married or he dies before
He
the marriage?
dies before married.
So she is basically unmarried mother.
Yes,
Is it?
unmarried, single mother. Yes.
So she's a single mother. Okay, even a married woman can be a single. So it's not very clear. Then Prem and Damini decided to get married. Whether they got married or not, that's not very clear. So that is why I asked you the question. Okay. So
Yes.
from here, the problem starts. You have introduced the crisis. There are a whole lot of crises because any story needs a crisis. Okay, because
Yes.
without a crisis, without a problem, you cannot have a story. The crisis
Yes.
is something that lends drama to the story. So the first crisis is basically the discovery of the fact that she's pregnant. Okay,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
second crisis is when they decide to get married and declare their intention to their respective parents. They are against it because they belong to different castes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
Caste.
there's a caste problem. And the third problem is, but still they decide to go ahead and get married. But the third problem is before they could get married, the man dies in an accident on his way to the factory. Okay,
Yes.
so that's a major setback. Now she, being a determined woman, she decided to be a single parent. Okay, her parents wouldn't support her. So now what you have not done, when does she give birth? After a tireless effort, she got a temporary job at a bank. Okay, so where is she living now? I mean, there are certain details you have to get into. Okay, key,
Yes, sir.
the man, her lover dies, the Prem dies. Okay, and she's pregnant. Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
does she continue to stay with her parents, or does she move out of the house? Because the parents are very conservative, they wouldn't want, and there's a younger daughter to be married off. Okay, and they wouldn't want the elder daughter, a pregnant daughter, unmarried pregnant daughter, to stay with them. It would cause a
Yes,
big
sir.
scandal. Okay,
Yeah.
so this thing is not clear.
Yes,
This
sir.
thing
Yes.
is not clear. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so if she's turned away from her parents house, or if she herself decides कि चलो मैं parents के घर में नहीं रहूंगा because of these factors, where does she go? Okay, because for a pregnant woman who is not married, without a job, to get a house on rent in any city is a problem. Okay, so this is an issue that you have overlooked. Okay, so
Yes,
how do you answer to this?
सर आप कह रहे हो सही है, एक दो लाइन उसमें से आनी चाहिए थी कि
हाँ, ऑफ कोर्स आनी चाहिए थी, क्योंकि यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है, लॉजिकल फैलेसी, आई वुड से लॉजिकल फैलेसी, कि लोगों के मन में ये प्रश्न आएंगे कि ऐसा अगर सिचुएशन है इन कंजर्वेटिव सोसाइटी, ओके, where the parents are against, both the parents were against, how can a pregnant woman, okay, how can she continue to live? Okay, stay with her parents. Okay, and in that case, if she's not staying with her parents, okay, so then what happens to her? Does she take the help of her friends? I mean, that aspect of her life is absolutely vacant, that you have not mentioned. Because you
Yes.
can turn to friends. There are certain friends who will turn down your offer. There are certain friends who will try to help you. Okay,
Yeah.
but she will of
Yeah.
course continue to face harassment and all. So that is a very
Yes.
interesting phase of the struggle for any single
Yeah.
woman, a pregnant woman. A very
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
phase which you have not explored. Okay, chalo, you have written after a tireless, huh?
Yes, sir.
After a tireless effort, she gets temporary job at a bank. Okay, so
हाँ,
ये जो tireless effort का जो segment है, हाँ, मतलब
हाँ,
that is my, again I am repeating my query कि मतलब वो is she operating out of her parents' house, or is she staying at a rented place, or is she staying at a woman's hostel with another friend of hers?
yeah, yeah.
These things had to be made clear. Okay, then
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
she gives birth to a cute baby boy, and she had a hard time dealing with people. A little more clarification: societal opposition, because a single mother, a kid outside marriage, okay, would
हाँ, हाँ,
definitely cause problems. So यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा दो तीन एक line का clarification, okay, dealing with
yes,
people
sir.
who were prejudiced against a single woman. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
but alongside, when she met poor and helpless people, she felt sorry for them. And then she turned towards her aim. Now she wants to come back to her original dream of being an IS officer. A job in a bank, raising a child, and studying UPSC seemed to be a problem for her. That we understand, of course. There's too much of a struggle involved. Okay, who's going to
Yes,
look
sir.
after the kid, and she has to do her job also, and then again study also. So she takes a long, for at least for 7 long years. She tries, she fails 3 times, but she did not want to give up the dream, and she won the fourth time and cracks the exams and interview of UPSC. And now she has packed her luggage with her son on a cycle, and she's going to a railway station. यहाँ पे भी थोड़ा सा clarification, is she going for the training? You know,
Yes, sir. She going
हाँ
for the
हाँ हाँ
training.
हाँ तो ये छोटे छोटे clarifications बहुत necessity है, especially in a
हाँ,
because you don't have much space in a short story ना, but within the number of words which have been allotted to you, you should be able to convey these very important information. Okay, when she reaches the railway station, she turns back once, and she to to live the old memories. यहाँ पे
yes,
it's a little misleading again. When she reached the railway station, she turned back. She turned back as if she doesn't want to go. She wants to stay back in the city. ऐसा for a time लगता है थोड़ा सा, लेकिन
हाँ,
ऐसा नहीं है.
मुझे
हाँ, ऐसा
ऐसा
नहीं
नहीं
है.
है, मुझे याद आ रही है
हाँ
जो
हाँ, याद आ रहा है. हाँ, तो लेकिन जो
हाँ,
कंस्ट्रक्शन सेंटेंस का जो कंस्ट्रक्शन है वो थोड़ा सा एक झलक के लिए थोड़ा सा मिसलीड कर देता है. लेकिन
अच्छा
ठीक है,
सर.
we get it, of course. A woman like this, self an independent woman who has been struggling, and who is so kind of obstinate, and who has been fighting against all odds, she cannot turn back from the railway station that is there. She has to continue with the journey. बस मुझे यही लगा, this is a very aspirational story, the story of a struggle of a single woman. Okay,
Yes, sir.
and a woman like who has faced a lot of problems in her life, societal problems, because these problems are very unnecessary problems, which happen in a lot of society. Why should a
Yeah.
woman be victimized just because she got pregnant outside marriage? Why should
Yes,
she be be victimized because she has decided to raise the kid alone? Okay, so
yes,
it's
sir.
very
Yeah,
unjust. ठीक है, so ये
yeah,
थोड़ा सा उसका स्ट्रगल जो है, शुरुआत, स्पेशली शुरुआत का जो स्ट्रगल है, ये थोड़ा सा
हाँ.
कपल ऑफ लाइंस में एलाबोरेट अगर करते तुम, तो थोड़ा सा बेटर रहता, वो क्लैरिटी आता
करूंगा
स्टोरी में.
करूंगा
अभी
सर,
भी है,
और
ऐसा
करूंगा.
नहीं कि क्लैरिटी नहीं है, ये एक बहुत ही क्लियर है तुम्हारा जो स्टोरी का जो फ्लो है.
हाँ,
Young woman struggle to achieve her dreams despite all the problems, that is happening definitely, and it is a very positive, it ends on a very positive note. Okay,
yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
so yeah, this is one thing. And another thing I must tell you, whenever you're writing a story, because ultimately you want to be a filmmaker, and the story would be, you would want the story to be turned into a screenplay, okay, which is visual language. Screenplay लिखने का तरीका अलग होता है, तो वो मैं अभी नहीं समझाऊंगा, because that is not needed. Okay, try to
Yeah.
write a story is the present का जो plot है, अभी का जो plot है, वो present tense में लिखने का कोशिश करो. ठीक है ना, present,
अच्छा सर.
not in
जी सर.
past tense. ठीक है ना,
Okay, sir. Okay.
until unless you're talking about a backstory, that could be in
हाँ,
past tense. She lost her father at the age of, ऐसा अगर है तो लेकिन अभी का जो struggle है वो present tense में होना अच्छा रहेगा. So it becomes a little more visual, nothing else. ठीक है?
लेकिन सर उसका जो पीछे हो गया ना, अभी वो रिक्शा में बैठकर जा रही है और उसने स्ट्रगल किया है, वो पास्ट टेंस मतलब भूतकाल में किया है, तो पास्ट टेंस में ही लिखना पड़ेगा ना वो।
नहीं, देखो, पिक्चर इज जस्ट अ ट्रिगर. पिक्चर इज जस्ट अ ट्रिगर फॉर यू, you know, trigger your imagination. ठीक है ना? So the bulk of your story, 99% of your story is happening at the present. Okay, over several years, of course, over 7 years, 7 years of a struggle to get into IAS, and before that, maybe it was 2 years she worked in the bank. So your story, the plot spans approximately, I would say, 8 years or 9 years in her life. Okay. So that we see 9 years in a. So ये time का concept भी तुम्हें जरा you have to be aware of, basically. Though you did not mention the time like that separately, but your story covers 9 years in the approximately 9 years of the woman's life. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's better if you can write it in present tense.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Shashank. अभी कौन पढ़ेगा? शशांक पढ़ेगा या प्रांग्या परिमिता प्रधान? Who's going to read?
हेलो सर.
हाँ, जस्ट इंट्रोड्यूस योरसेल्फ, खुद के बारे में थोड़ा सा बोलो, फिर कहाँ के हो तुम, कहाँ पे रहते हो, क्या कर रहे हो, और फिर देन यू स्टार्ट रीडिंग. या
Sir, my name is Pradipamita Pradhan. I'm from Odisha. I made films from
Bhubaneswar.
Bhubaneswar.
अच्छा, okay. What are you doing?
Bhubaneswar के एकदम से एक गांव का है.
अच्छा.
फिल्में बनाती हूँ, से कॉन्फिडेंस दैट आई एम फिल्म मेकर. अभी एक क्लाइमेट चेंज के ऊपर एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री फीचर का वो एडिटिंग चल रहा है.
उसमें क्या काम कर रहे हो तुम?
सर, हेलो.
Yeah, your voice is cracking a little.
हेलो.
Yeah.
सर, वो मैंने एक्चुअली 2-3 साल पहले एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री बनाई थी क्लाइमेट चेंज के ऊपर. मैंने डायरेक्ट किए थे और एडिटिंग स्लाइटली मैं कर रही हूँ. चल रहा है बस.
Okay.
So, sir, मैं शुरू करूँ?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
My story title is Part of My Sky.
Okay.
And this is not the first time Subra had a fight with her husband Asman. Though it happens every day on outside things, this is the first time Asman said, "If you have so much problems with me, then just leave." This hurts Subra a lot. Subra is a self-respecting woman. After listening such words from her husband, she packed her bags and left with a 5-year-old son, Avra. Avra has no idea what's going on. He just enjoys being outside. All the way to platform, he keeps asking questions, and her mother, Subra. While Subra said, all the way to platform, he keeps asking questions to her mother, Subra. While Subra is lost in her own questions, that is this the end of this relationship? Is he not going to? I'm not going to see his face in my life. Life is not fair. So many questions. How can he even think about the separation? How can he let me leave? Why didn't he try to stop me? There is so much anger, fear, hopelessness inside her. She was lost with these thoughts. Subra and Asman have been married for 7 years. They had a love marriage. Initially, Subra's mother was not in support of this marriage because Asman lost his parents in an accident from childhood. So, as a mother, she was concerned how can she live alone in a city? Though he's an A-grade officer, her father was not is in support of the marriage. There is a mistake actually. Sorry, Subra was aware of Asman's anger issue, that he gets angry quickly and does anything in anger. When Asman confessed his feelings to her, he said only one thing: "Can you tolerate me throughout the life?" She replied, "I will take care of you and your anger throughout life." This memory melted her heart. She murmurs, "How can I leave me? How can
I leave
he
him.
leave me? I leave
How
him.
can he leave me, or how
No,
can
no,
I?
how can I leave him?
Okay.
We are not meant to be apart. We are a part of You are a part of my soul. You are a part of my sky. Now Subra is waiting at platform, not for the train, but for his Asman.
Okay, I think this is beautiful. I mean, what you have done, you have captured a moment in the woman's life and the complexity and the contradictions, okay, which is very modern and also very contemporary, of course. In the sense that they were in love with each other, and they married despite the opposition of the parent, the girl's parent, the mother especially. Okay, and she was also aware of the anger issue that her husband has. Okay, but she decided that should not be a problem, and he will try to cope, deal with that, negotiate that, and try to change him. Okay, it's because the husband had asked him, "Can you tolerate me throughout your life?" And she had replied, "I will take care of you and your anger throughout your life." So this memory, as you've written the last few lines, this memory melts her heart, and she murmurs, "How can I leave him? We are not meant to be apart. You are part of my soul. You are a part of my sky." Now Shubhra is waiting at platform not for the train, but for his Asman. Okay. So is she confident that her husband is going to come back, or it's just a hopeless kind of a hope?
So it's not about confidence. It's a belief that they can't be separated.
They can't be separated. Okay. Now tell me, what I like about your story is the way you have milked the moment. There has been an issue. Okay, and this is not the first time. Can you go up a little? How can I just want to see the first paragraph. I just want to have. This is not the first time Shubhra had a fight with her husband Asman. This is a fantastic opening. Okay, so you're starting from the middle of an action. Okay, it's almost like a screenplay. This is how scripts are written, very, very visual. Okay, though it happens every day on absurd things, this is the first time Asman said, "If you have such problems with me, then just leave." So this hurt Shubhra a lot. Okay, so she decides so she packs her bags and all, and she leaves for the station along with the kid, who is not aware of the tension so much, and they have been married for 7 years. So यहाँ पे सिर्फ एक ही मेरा problem है, okay, in terms of the theme, in terms of the larger story. Okay, I have no problem with the way you have written. I have no problem with the plot, and it's very visual also. Okay, the only problem I have कि I'm not being able to root for the woman. I mean, a woman has to take a call. I mean, how long can she put up with the husbands? I mean, why should the woman always adjust herself? Why can the man also adjust and change? That is one major issue that I have with your story. I mean, why can't she really? Why? Shall I repeat? Yeah. Okay. The major issue that I have with your story, I like the plot. It's very visual. Okay. You're milked to the moment. Okay. And I can see the scenes almost. It's almost like a screenplay. Okay. But the major issue that I have is she knows the husband has a problem. Okay. The anger issue that he has is a major flaw in the character. And so why should she, cope with this issue, this particular problem, anger issue, all her life? Why can't she really step out and take charge of her own life? Why does she? Because if she goes back to her house, and if the husband is reunited with the husband again, it will continue. So how long can she adjust? Why can the man also adjust? Why can the man change himself?
सर एक्चुअली ये होता है हमारे लाइफ में, हम जिसे पैक करते हैं हम उसे एक्सेप्ट जब नहीं करते हैं तब प्रॉब्लम होती है. लाइफ में सब कुछ होता है, हम उसे अगर उसको कंप्लेन करने लगेंगे तो वो ज्यादा बदर होगा. दिस इज द ब्यूटी. आई मीन सब कुछ होता है यहाँ। आई मीन वो ज्यादा गुस्सा हो जाता है, उसके गुस्से में भी प्यार होता है, लेकिन वो एक्सेप्टेंस है। जो शुभ्रा है वो उसके एंगर इश्यूज के साथ वो एक्सेप्ट कर रही है, एंड दैट्स द ब्यूटी ऑफ दिस रिलेशनशिप। तो मेरा बस यही है।
But don't you
पता
think
नहीं शायद मैं
don't you think all the adjustments are being made by the woman and not by the husband? The husband is like a kind of
कोशिश कर रही
uh,
थी, पर वो
like a baby कि नहीं मैं तो सुधरूंगा नहीं, सुधरना है, एडजस्ट करना है, तुम करो।
नहीं सर, एक्चुअली अगर मेरे स्टोरी से अगर ये पता चल रहा है, आई मीन कन्वे हो रहा है कि husband is not trying to change himself. He is also trying to change himself, but he has some, I think, like mental issues और क्या। That's why I think प्लेटफॉर्म में शुभ्रा को वो सब याद आ गई, वो कैसे वो जो प्यार है वो जैसे जताता है, जैसे एंगर जताता है उससे प्यार भी जताता है। शायद वो थोड़े पल के लिए रुक गई और उसको बिलीव है कि वो आएगी। हाँ, वो एक मेटाफोरिकल थिंग है कि वो आएगा या नहीं आएगा।
Ambiguity, it's not metaphor, it's ambiguous. ये हो भी सकता है, नहीं भी हो सकता है, हमें पता नहीं।
लेकिन हाँ, एक बिलीव है,
बिलीफ है, हाँ।
शुभ्रा को बिलीव है कि वो उसे छोड़ ही नहीं सकता, बस दे आर मेड फॉर ईच अदर।
ठीक है, I mean, at least, I mean, I will not contradict this is your position as a storyteller. Okay, you have got every right, and my take as a viewer. Okay, I may not agree with everything that you say, but what I love about your story is it's very tender and it's very realistic and it's very visual. I can see the scenes and I can see a film emerging out of it. Okay, and there's another thing I must warn you कि जब भी कोई, especially for exams, okay, FTI exams and all, ये mistakes मत करना। यहाँ पे जैसे कि तुमने लिखा ना, how can I leave me, हाँ, so ऐसी, हाँ, be very careful। एक बार जब लिख डालोगे, एक बार दोबारा पढ़ लेना कि कोई mistakes तो नहीं है ना, because it should not confuse the reader, your examiner। ठीक है, तो बोलेगा अरे this student is careless, ऐसा ना होना चाहिए, ऐसा impression मत डालो, ठीक है।
हाँ जी,
ओके, चलो, गुड एफर्ट।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू।
अभी कौन?
Hello sir, I am a final year engineering student and I am here to attend your special lecture.
You're from which city? You're from which part of the country?
I grew up in Mumbai, but these days I'm in Greater Noida.
Acha, okay. So you're a final year engineering student. After passing out engineering, you want to betray the engineering world and want to join cinema. ठीक है, चलो, it's your call.
Actually, sir, we engineers, we can be anything.
Because a lot of filmmakers are coming from engineering background. That is my observation. Okay, anyway, चलो, वत्सला, तुम पढ़ो जरा।
Okay. Holding her boy below the hips, she peered into the distance as the latest train zoomed behind her, and the coolie awaited her instructions. He had 3 suitcases on his head and a large, worn-out beige briefcase in hand. She stated her destination. He led the way and she followed past the Gaia signboard, platforms and stairs, finally spilling onto the main road where she gave him his payment. The village was full of cycle rickshaws. It did not take her long to find one. The boy kept asking questions about whether Nani would buy him a bandook, feed him halwa, play with him, etc. The woman's patience seemed to reach a limit when he asked her if Nana would put him up a tree and let him pluck mangoes. She put an end to his questions by saying that she was worried. When the kid asked why she was worried, she said that she was worried they would reach home safely and continue to squint into the space between the blue skies. When all was silent, the rickshaw puller started asking her questions instead. She firmly affirmed that all was well in her family and she was going to her Maika for the 2 months that her husband was away in the army. Soon the horse rickshaw reached the correct address. The rickshaw pulled out the luggage at the door of the house. Her father stood at the doorway smiling with his hands folded, his eyes crinkling. He struck a conversation with the rickshaw puller about his whereabouts and family. Finally, inside the living room, she and the boy sat on the divan, drank ruafza. The boy ran to the washroom immediately after drinking a sip of his glass. The boy's grandmother started to demand answers. Where was her husband? She had been expecting him. Didn't she say she was going to bring him? The woman said nothing and reached for the old beige briefcase. Her mother held her hand to stop her and said they would look at the gifts later. But the woman took off her hand and opened the briefcase. Right at the heart of the briefcase lay an olive green uniform, neatly folded and ironed. The shoulder rank badges were still on the uniform. Memories filled the contents to the brim. Medals, belt buckle, buttons, love letters, a ring, a gold necklace he gave on her son's first birthday, a perfume, leather jacket, and a cricket ball signed by Kapil Dev. The 80 plus elderly started weeping uncontrollably, but the woman did not shed a tear. She did a salute to her departed husband.
Okay, this is nice. Yeah, can I go to the beginning of the story, please?
Yes, sure.
So that comes as a surprise. The ending comes as a surprise, which is very good. Okay, holding her boy below the hip, she peered into the. Again, as I told the other students, when you're writing a story, try to write, especially a short story, try to write it in the present tense. Okay, holding her boy below the hip, she peers into the distance as the last train zooms behind her and the coolie awaits her instructions. He has 3 suitcases on his head and a large worn-out beige briefcase. Very brief descriptions, good descriptions. She states the destination. He leads the way, and she follows past the Goya signboard. And yeah, somebody has raised his hand. Bolo.
So why is it important to write in present tense?
Because you are aspiring filmmakers, isn't it? Okay, and whatever story you deal with, you want to convert that into a screenplay. And a screenplay, what is a screenplay? Screenplay or a script. These two words are used interchangeably. Okay, a screenplay is basically the blueprint of the film that you're going to make. Okay, so the screenplay has all the, not the technical details. It has, so whenever you're writing the screenplay, you write it. That is a standard practice. You write the screenplay in the present tense, because cinema, as it unfolds on the screen in front of your eyes, happens in the present. Even a flashback that you cut to, something, a scene which had happened maybe 2 years ago, that is also happening in present tense.
Yes, sir.
So whatever you watch on the screen is happening in present tense. So in the screenplay practice, it has become key. Whatever you write in present tense. Does not mean you cannot write, when you're working on a story, you cannot write it in past tense. But because this is a very incisive advice that I can give you, because you are applying to a film school in order to be a film student, a direction student. Your examiners would love if you're writing it in present tense.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
यहाँ चलो ये बंदे का, ये स्टूडेंट जो है, एस्पिरेंट जो है, उसका थोड़ा बहुत स्क्रीन प्ले के तरफ थोड़ा सा नेचुरल ओरिएंटेशन है, kind of. Okay.
Yes,
And when you're writing in present tense, it feels कि there's an immediacy to the description. There's an immediacy to the situation, as if it's really happening right in front of your eyes. Okay, so she states a destination. He leads the way. So when you're writing, he led the way as if it had already happened. Okay, but if you write, he leads the way and she follows as if it's happening right now. Okay, so that immediacy is very, very important.
I also feel it would be better if I had done that. I feel that.
I mean, this is just an exercise. Okay, that is why we're having the class. Okay, so he leads the way, she follows past the Gaya signboard, platform stairs, finally spilling onto the main road where she gives him his payment. The village is full of cycle rickshaws. It did not take a long to find one. The boy keeps asking. They kept asking questions about whether Nani. So the little boy's curiosity also you have dealt with, which is very, very good. A little boy is always curious, especially when he's going to a new house or going to a house which has been to many years ago. So it's full of curiosity. Okay. And there's a conversation with the rickshaw puller also, which is again very cinematic, again very emotional. Okay, and we are anxious actually, and slowly we are getting anxious and also curious as viewers, as a reader. Hai kya chakkar kya hai? Okay, and she arrives at her parents' house, Maika, and typical Roo Abza वगैरह वगैरह ऐसा हो रहा है. Okay, and the boy's grandmother starts to demand answer. Okay, demand where is her husband? She had been expecting him. Didn't she say she was going to bring him? The woman says nothing and reaches for the old briefcase. Her mother holds her hand to stop her and say, they would look at the gifts later. But the lady takes off her hand and opens the briefcase. Right at the heart of the briefcase lies an olive green uniform, and of course the details, the beautiful details that you mentioned. And we realize, along with the grandparents, we also realize, what is the truth. That's a very, very emotional moment. Okay, so it's a lovely story which can be actually, turned into a very good a short film of around 10 minutes. Okay, so I've got nothing else to say. The details are very relevant, the details that you have mentioned. Just that I felt key, if you write it in present tense, the immediacy of the action would be very palpable.
Yes, thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
It means a lot to me.
Yeah. Then another thing I must tell all of you, in filmmaking, we have this saying, you should practice imagination. Imagination is like a piece of muscle. Just as you go to the gym every day, you work out to develop and maintain your muscles. So similarly, every day you should practice imagination. You think of a situation, try to build a story around it. That is why this writing prompt of a lady with a kid. Okay, it's triggered your imagination. To keep this practice, this would come of help. Okay, chalo. Yeah.
Bye, sir.
Bye bye. Thank you. Who's going to be the next?
Good evening, sir.
Durgeshwari Sharma.
Yes, sir. Good
You're
evening.
from, hi, good evening. You're from?
I'm from Pune, sir.
Acha, and you're doing what?
I do theatre in Pune.
Acha, you theatre. You do theatre as an actor or production or what? Director.
Sir, I did my master's in performing arts from
Acha.
Hyderabad Central University, and
Okay.
immediately after my post graduation, the lockdown happened. So
Oh,
I'm
acha.
associated with Swatantra Theatre over here.
Acha, acha. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now you want to apply to a film school. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Chalo, start reading. Yeah.
Not a single well-wisher from the bank came to send off Neha when she was leaving Saharanpur with her 6-year-old son Jay after being transferred from her bank job to Lucknow. Mr. Yadav, her neighbor, whom she considered her father figure, was choked when they were leaving the city. He always had a soft corner for both of them and gave them all the fatherly support he could have given to Neha and her son, whom she was raising with a lot of dedication single handedly. He helped load their luggage in the tanga and insisted on leaving them at the station. But Neha refused politely, saying he would have trouble with his arthritis later. And as a farewell gift, he handed over his favorite binoculars to Jay. They bid each other goodbye, and Neha left teary eyed. All the way till the station, she was getting nostalgic when thinking about Mr. Yadav, that how he would spend his remaining days. She hired a coolie to unload the luggage and help her board the train. When they reached the platform, she heard the announcement that the train would be late. Jay kept himself busy by looking through the binoculars, and Neha was giving a final glance at the city, which taught her to be an independent woman. She kept looking at the station gate and remembered the day when she first came in the city with Jay in her arms after being recently divorced. The settled the setting sun kissed her cheek to say a goodbye from Saharanpur. Just then she saw Mukesh and was delighted as well as surprised. Mukesh was her college sweetheart who was left heartbroken after her parents forced her to marry Sumit. Mukesh was dumbstruck after seeing Neha after so many years. Just then, Jay saw through his binoculars his angry uncle who was coming towards them. Jay was Jay was not too fond of his uncle as he often saw them fighting over property issues. He pointed out at his uncle, and by the time Neha could react to both Mukesh and her brother quickly came towards her and asked her if she would hand over the property to him. Unable to bear the refusal, and in a fit of rage, he stabbed her. Jay fell from her lap, and she was left lying in a pool of blood. Her brother realized what he had done to his sister, and unable to bear, he jumped in front of a speeding train. Neha was half conscious and was looking at Mukesh, but instead walked away as if he never knew her. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Jay was sobbing bitterly, and the coolie went and called for the police. With the help of onlookers, Neha was rushed to the nearest hospital.
Okay, can you just, I want to see the last two paragraphs, okay? Uh, just the beginning of the last, second last paragraph, beginning of the second last. She hired a coolie to unload the luggage and help board the train. When they reached the platform, she heard the announcement that the train would be late. Jay kept himself busy by looking through the binoculars, and Neha was giving a final glance at the city, which taught her to be an independent woman. Okay, so she
Yes.
kept looking at the station gate and remembered the day when she first came to the city with Jay in her arms after being recently divorced. The setting sun kissed her cheek to say a goodbye from Shahranpur. यहाँ पे full stop होना चाहिए था. Just should be a new sentence, na, capital J.
Okay.
Just then she saw Mukesh and was delighted as well as surprised. Mukesh was her college sweetheart who was left heartbroken after her parents forced her to marry Sumit.
Yes.
Okay. Mukesh was dumbstruck after seeing Neha after so many years. Just then, Jay saw through his binoculars his angry uncle was coming towards them. Jay was not too fond of his uncle as he often saw them fighting over property issues. He pointed out at his uncle, and by the time Neha could react to both Mukesh and her brother, her brother quickly came towards her and asked if she would hand over the property to him. Unable to bear the refusal, and in a fit of rage, he stabs her. Jay falls from her lap and she is left lying in a pool of blood. Her brother realizes what he had done to his sister and, unable to bear, he jumps in front of the speeding train. Neha is half conscious and is looking at Mukesh, but instead he walks away as if he never knew her. Tears roll down her cheeks. Jay sobs bitterly, and the coolie goes and calls for the police. With the help of onlookers, Neha is rushed to the nearest hospital. Okay, देखो यहाँ पे क्या है? Of course, the way you have described the situation is very visual. I could see the images, okay, and the beginning, the way you have introduced she was a little sad because none of her colleagues had come to see her off at the station.
Yes.
It was the old man, the fatherly figure who wanted to come, who had helped them, okay, during her stay in the city. But she resisted his offers कि नहीं आपका arthritis का problem है मत आइए, ठीक है? So now she's alone with the kid and the train is late, the luggage has been kept, okay? So it's very tender and there's a feeling of vacuum in her. This is a city which had made her independent, taught her so many things, and and now she's sad that she has to go back, and she feels a little vacuum in her that none of her colleagues had come to see her off. Now this I find a little strange why none of her colleagues had come. Was she unpopular? You have introduced a curiosity in the minds of the reader, but you have not answered that curiosity. Okay, why hadn't any except the old man who wanted to come? Number one. Okay, number two, suddenly a lot of things start happening. Suddenly she sees her childhood sweetheart Mukesh. Okay, now where does he spring from? Because this is a city. Is this her hometown? Okay, that's not mentioned. For a moment I felt that this is Shahranpur, where she was working in a firm, and now she is being transferred to some other city. So suddenly Mukesh appears. Does Mukesh appear to meet her? What is he doing? I mean, that's not very clear. I mean, does Mukesh come to meet her because he has just come to know that she is leaving the city for some another city? That is why she comes to meet her. Okay. And what about the brother? Okay, the boy's uncle. How come he suddenly टपक पड़ा? ठीक है, आके डिमांड कर रहा है कि प्रॉपर्टी के बारे में आर्ग्यू कर रहा है, and he stabs her. Suddenly a whole lot of things start happening together without any announcement, without any, as we say, without any foreshadowing. Foreshadow का मतलब कि something is going to happen. तुमने कोई इंडिकेशन नहीं दिया, ठीक है ना? तुम्हारा कहानी का जो सूर था कुछ और था, और अभी सडनली कहानी का सूर ड्रामेटिकली बदल जा रहा है. It takes a different turn. So as a viewer, I'm getting a little disoriented. डिस्टर्ब तो हो ही रहा हूँ, इतना खून खराबी, सुसाइड वगैरह होने लगा. Suddenly it's becoming very melodramatic from a very kind of a poignant story, from a very feeling of sadness and feeling of nostalgia. जो टोन तुमने इंट्रोड्यूस किया था, suddenly it takes a gear change, a major gear change होता है. Gear change होके enters into a melodramatic area where unexpected things happening at a breathtaking speed. Okay, and as an audience, I'm dumbfounded. अरे ये क्या हो रहा है, अरे ये क्या हो रहा है, जिसका तुमने कोई इंडिकेशन दिया ही नहीं. अगर हाँ, so I have a feeling कि maybe तुम्हारे स्टोरी में जो मटेरियल्स है, मुकेश being the lover, okay, and ब्रदर के साथ जो प्रॉपर्टी रिलेटेड आर्ग्यूमेंट्स वगैरह है, these are materials for a novel, these are materials for a larger story, not a short story.
Okay.
शॉर्ट स्टोरी में क्या होनी चाहिए, शॉर्ट स्टोरी में ट्राई एज मच एज पॉसिबल टू अवॉइड बैक स्टोरीज, कॉम्प्लिकेटेड बैक स्टोरीज. हाँ, पहले क्या था, 2-1 लाइन लिख दिया, ठीक है, लेकिन शॉर्ट स्टोरी इवन इन अ शॉर्ट फिल्म, योर मेन फोकस शुड बी इन द प्रेजेंट. अभी क्या समस्या है, समस्या क्यों है वो इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, समस्या क्या है अभी, और कैरेक्टर जो हमारा जो कैरेक्टर है वो समस्या को डील कैसे करेगा. That is what a short story should be. That is what a short film should be. ठीक है ना? So suddenly ये major gear change जो है, it's very disorienting for the audience.
Okay.
Okay. Otherwise it's very clear. And again, as I've been telling the others, and I'll repeat also, you try to write it in present tense.
All right. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're from theater background. And you have done graduation in theater performing arts. Your storytelling should have been a little better in the sense ki a little more kind of single tone. You cannot change a tone in the middle of a story.
Yes, sir.
No film is a mixture of tones. It has to have a single tone. Whatever is the tone, that if it's over the top, maintain that over the top tone. If it's very serene, okay, maintain that serene tone throughout. Okay. So if it's very comic, maintain that comic tone throughout. You cannot shift gear and adopt different tones the way your story suddenly becomes melodramatic. That's not desired.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So एक single focus होना बहुत जरूरी है. Okay.
Thank you.
I would say that don't mix the old wine with the beer.
Yeah.
Maintain the flavor.
Okay.
वो consistency of the flavor, हाँ, वो बहुत जरूरी है.
ठीक है sir.
So
okay.
Next gentleman is
Thank you, sir.
Yashwant Singh. Yashwant, are you here?
Yes, sir. I'm audible.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay.
Your stuff.
So
can I start?
Just introduce yourself a little. कहाँ के हो तुम, कहाँ पे रह रहे हो और क्या कर रहे हो?
So right now I'm in Ranchi, but I'm doing my final year from Xavier's in literature, Kolkata.
Asha, okay, you're from Calcutta. Are you from Calcutta?
No, I'm from Ranchi only, but I study in Calcutta.
Acha, okay. Okay, chalo. Follow.
My first introduction to God was in pieces. As I ascended the stairs, pieces and fragments of a statue of Ganesh lay scattered around my feet. I looked down upon it and saw God at his most vulnerable. Looking up, I realized my mother had thrown it, for God had been unfair to her. My father had died this morning, and suddenly the savior and creator of the world became an evil omen of curses and bearings of undeserved punishment. I remember the agony in my mother's eyes as she looked at the scattered pieces from across the room as my grandfather attempted to restrain her. I'd seen nothing but adoration in her eyes whenever they fell down upon the elephant deity. For the first time, I saw hate in my mother's eyes. I stood there as she was escorted back to her room, and my grandfather motioned me to go upstairs. I did as I was told, but in my subconscious, a divine system instilled by religion had started to break in pieces as well. For now, only cracks had appeared. As I lay in bed that night, I questioned my faith. When you are a child, you believe parents are forever and God is the ultimate being. Both beliefs had been shattered in a day for me. When a kid loses his faith, the life awaiting him becomes a maze, which is dim self-doubt and lack of trust. But when you lose faith, you need something else to be faithful upon. Otherwise, the world seems too meaningless for anyone's good. I remember laying in bed that night and pondering if it was possible for a world such as mine to have no meaning. But I couldn't justify my father's death with no meaning. No ever-loving God would kill a man for no reason. Or I hoped so, at least. When I opened my eyes, I was in a realm of four walls. I was in the outside world as a rickshaw pulled me and my mother forward towards a road we were both unfamiliar with. I looked up at her, and the earlier agony had given way to reassurance in her eyes again. I saw luggage in the back of the rickshaw and made the connection. We were on our way to a railway station. My mother held me by my shoulder, and the touch felt like I was back in my four-wall bedroom. It felt warm and reassuring, as if every nightmare has its morning when you finally open your eyes and everything is just as it always was. Your faith is just as it always was, not in pieces. The statue of Ganesh, just as it always was, and not in pieces.
Okay. So it's about a young boy who
I think there's more underneath.
Okay. Okay.
When I opened my eyes again, I was in my mother's lap as she made her way into the stationary train. We walked down an aisle of chatter shouts and found a two-sleeper bogie with our seat numbers 12 and 13. She placed me on my seat and took a seat in front of me. The train began to slowly move now. Looking outside the window as I left my hometown behind, I realized that life doesn't make sense. I realized that if life doesn't make sense, we give ourselves an illusion of beginning again in order to give it meaning. I won't come back to this place for another 20 years. A new beginning would be the cause for it.
Okay. Okay. So just I want to see the first paragraph. My first introduction to God was in pieces. I ascended the stairs. Pieces and fragments of a statue of Ganesha lay scattered around my feet. I looked down upon it and saw God at the most vulnerable. My mother had shown God because the father died this morning. Suddenly, the savior and the creator of the world became an evil omen of curses and bearings of undeserved punishment. Just roll down a little. Yeah. I remember the agony in my mother's eyes. She looked at her, scattered pieces from the. Okay, so it's about an experience a child has. So just tell me, is this the point of view of a young child or a grown-up who's recollecting? Child. Okay, so last. So the last sentence में तुमने जो लिखा ना, I'll not be coming back here till 20 years later. So that puts it in perspective. Ki, yeah, so it could be, maybe it's not the point of view of a little child, but it's the point of view of a young man. Okay, who has come back to the city after 20 years, the city that he had left along with his mother. Why did she leave the city? Why did the mother and son leave the city?
I was trying to introduce a theme of beginning again. So when like the mother's husband dies, my mother's husband dies in the story. She wants to leave behind the city in order to get a new beginning, as in now this city is sort of stained for her, as in the memories she cannot bear it. So she's sort of going towards another place. I didn't like clarify that because I thought that would be going elsewhere. So I just left it at there because she's trying to get a new beginning.
That is a missing link. That is where I felt कि look, जा क्यों रहे? ठीक है, चलो, I can understand the mother's agony. I can understand the mother's the anger at the God, anger of the injustice of it all. Okay, I can understand the trauma of the little boy who had so much of faith in God, and he just cannot take the fact that God is responsible for this huge tragedy. Okay, the death of the father.
Yeah.
Okay, I can understand everything, and I can empathize with them. And empathy in the sense that I can feel their problem. Okay, and I'm with them, especially I'm with the child. Okay, and from the child's point of view, though it's not the child's point of view, it's the point of view of an adult and a young man. But that portion which you have not clarified, the mother's decision to start anew मतलब fresh, ठीक है ना? हाँ, ये वहाँ पे थोड़ा सा clarification जरूरी था. That's left unexplained and it's very ambiguous and it looks very abrupt. Okay, वहाँ पे थोड़ा सा connection जो है, causal connection, cause and effect, causal, CAUSL, being a student of literature, you would understand. Okay, so वहाँ पे missing है. ठीक है, तो वहां पे क्लैरिटी आना जरूरी था. Otherwise, I don't have any problem. So it's about a man, a young man, how he loses faith in God and regains faith in God. That is, in nutshell,
Yeah.
is the larger theme. And he realizes कि life में ऐसा होता ही है. So गुस्सा भगवान के ऊपर गुस्सा पे कोई फायदा नहीं है. ठीक है. So he regains trust in God, and life moves on, and he comes back to the city after 20 years. But I'll just repeat myself. The mother's decision needed to be clarified a little. Okay. Otherwise,
Okay.
it's very well written. लेकिन यहाँ पे एक चीज मैं तुम्हें, being an aspiring film student, being an aspirant in the for FTII or SRFTII, क्या है कि तुम्हारा जो it really reads like a short story. It really reads like a very mature short story. ठीक है, written by not an amateur. ठीक है ना. लेकिन what is desired, देखो तुम्हारे स्टोरी में there's a lot of interiority मतलब दिमाग के अंदर क्या चल रहा है. There's a lot of things which are happening inside the character's mind. Nothing wrong in that as far as a short story is concerned. But as an aspiring filmmaker, and as a filmmaker, all filmmakers, they deal with the exteriority. How do you externalize the internal thought process of a character? That is the biggest challenge of cinema. Literature mein kya hai? The writer is like God. He can enter the way you have done. You entered the character's head, and you could read the character's thoughts, and you have explained the character's thoughts. Okay, his trauma, his frustration, his anger, and of course his realization. Okay, so
because when I go to maybe film this, I wouldn't be able to film the internalization of the character.
So the greatest challenge, cinema, literature is about psychology. Cinema is about behavior, because a character's internal thought process has to be externalized through the action that he does. So the action, by action I mean not fights. By action I mean what the character is doing. Okay, so that is very important. What the character is doing should reveal the character. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Next time you write a story for your writing assignment or exam, okay, so try to externalize, try to focus on the action, the behavioral part. Okay, the action part. Make it more visual. This is not visual. This is very, very interiority, which is good. I mean, I liked it. I as a student of literature myself, I don't have problems. But as an examiner, I feel ये बंदा अगर literature में ही continue करे तो अच्छा है. Film में ये क्या करने आ रहा है? You should not give that wrong impression to the examiner.
I understand.
Okay? It has to be more visual. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Chalo, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we move to the next boy, because some of these people have not sent the things later on.
Okay.
So I just try to figure it out. Wait. Just give me a moment. This is how the problem happens. Give me a moment. Okay. Yeah. So now the next, we will go by the order. Oh shit, what has gone wrong? So there were a couple of other things also. Just a moment, let me just refresh it from there. So those people who are late today, I have told you to, can you guys hear me?
Sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So you people did not send it till 4 o'clock, and that's the problem. You had 2 complete days. But right now I was trying to put here the story of this boy, Purushottam Gogoi. So start.
Sir, this is my story. Sir, this is not Purushottam Gogoi's story.
So by mistake, I just tried to end it. So that your story is perhaps, right?
Yes.
Who is this?
I am Shammu Sen Sharma. I am opening my video.
You also did not send it. I just tried to put it and cut and paste it over here. Because of that, rest of the people's thing has got little disrupted. So make sure that you follow the instructions, otherwise we will not be able to include it. Okay.
I can start my video.
Okay.
Okay.
Start reading it now.
Can you see my video, sir?
Yeah, I can see. We can see you. Yeah.
Okay.
So just introduce yourself. One line. Where do you belong?
I am Shamur Hen Sharma. I am from Jadavpur University. I live in Jadavpur, Kolkata. I studied in South Point High School. I am studying Bengali. I completed my Bengali honors this year, and I am just admitted to my master's first year in Bengali literature.
Good. Okay, chalo paro.
November 7th, 2005.
Move up a little, Naresh. Are you?
Yeah, one second. It was warm up.
Yeah.
The name of the story is Perhaps. It is inspired by Premendra Mitra's short story. It is not inspired. The title is inspired by Premendra Mitra's short story Hoyto. The title is inspired by that. Perhaps. It was a warm afternoon when the lady stepped out of the train. Clad in a blue light salwar, she had her little kid in her lap. I absolutely love the station. Whenever I am a bit down, I come here and silently observe people. Most of the time, it's a Pandora's box. Crowds of people flocking to get on the train. The perfect example of unity in diversity. From backpackers to daily wage workers, it's a pleasantly sonorous environment for me. A coolie had come in to help the mother and her child. The kid seemed pretty interesting, with toy binoculars hanging from his neck. Anyone watching the child would be reminded of Opu from Pather Pachali, a kid with an earnest desire to explore the remote and with an inexplorable allurement for the adventure. However, the one that piqued my curiosity and brought out the Bomkesh in me was the mother. Being a middle-aged lady, she appeared a little dejected. With 3 suitcases and a large trunk, it was quite evident that she had plans of long vacation here in the suburbs. Kishorganj is a quiet place, and as the night sets in, it might seem a little dingy for people living under the lights. Though the concretes are slowly engulfing the Virasant, but still life is snail-paced compared to the city.
Thoda sa up. I mean, scroll down a little. Yeah.
Kishorganj is a quiet place, and as the night sets in, it might seem a little dingy for people living under the lights. Though the concretes are slowly engulfing the Virasant, but still life is snail-paced compared to the city. Maybe it was her hometown. Maybe she came here to reunite with her friends and family. Most importantly, to reunite with her roots. The coolie took the trunks on his head and then approached a horse cart. There is quite a journey ahead. I had no clue what had gotten into my mind. I took my bicycle parked outside the station and started following the horse cart. A few questions cropped up in my mind. Does the child have a father? Is the mother going through a heartbreak? Perhaps she was a single mother who couldn't bear the brunt of raising a child alone in a city. Did her husband cheat on her? A stream of diverse thoughts was enveloping my mind until the child finally spoke.
Scroll up a little.
A stream of diverse thoughts was enveloping my mind until the child finally spoke. पापा और मम्मी घर कब लौटेंगे? हम लोग दिवाली साथ में मनाएंगे. पापा ने प्रॉमिस किया था. दिल्ली यहाँ से कितना दूर है? दिल्ली यहाँ से कितना दूर है, चाची? I was sad and angry that they didn't come home during the festival. I had thought that I won't speak to them when they come. But to be honest, auntie, I do really miss them. The woman stayed silent. I almost got an electric shock. I stopped my cycles. Shivers ran down my spine. On October 29th, with Diwali just 2 days away, Delhi's markets were decorated with shoppers. The festive spirit was in the air till 5:30, when terrorists triggered a series of blasts, leaving a trail of destruction and death. Police said those who were near the bomb were blown into pieces. A drop of sweat trickled down my neck. Perhaps all this is my imagination. Perhaps his father and mother has gone to a vacation together. Perhaps they will return soon. Perhaps the child who is now slowly fading away from my vision as the car goes down the lane will reunite with his parents again. Perhaps the woman will see her sister again. Perhaps.
Okay.
Perhaps. There's one more word. Perhaps. One more word.
Okay. So we get to know it's not the mother, it's the aunt basically, and he is not aware the parents are dead. So यहाँ पे एक ही few problems that I have. Just scroll up a little. Yeah.
Okay.
कि you've looked at the entire story from the point of view. Who is this
of a
I?
third person.
Is third person? You know,
It is me.
it's a
One person is watching her coming
ha.
out of a tent. I have told
Okay.
that I come to the session to observe people. I have written that.
So who is this I? We do not get to know the identity of the I. Because as a reader, you know, I'm curious, who's this guy? Is he a student? Is he somebody young man out of job? Or is he a psychopath? Or is he, you know what? Or is he a writer who observes people,
maybe he's a writer who observes. You observe people.
So that is not देखो क्या है कि as an again I'll tell you, I'll repeat, कि as an aspiring filmmaker, this works as a short story definitely. Okay, this works as a short story, and being familiar with Premendra Mitra's stories, so I know the style also. You know, where this kind of an approach, externally approaching this thing. So I would have been happy, you know, if you had written the entire story from the point of view of the characters instead of a third character. Okay, and who is watching them from a distance. Okay,
yes,
because again, as I was telling the previous student, as an aspiring filmmaker, as an aspirant, okay, what they judge you by is your ability to work up a story which has clarity, definitely number one. Okay, consistency of tone, number two, and which is visual. Okay, what you have done is basically we are not being able to we are always assuming we are with the third person character.
Maybe we can do a narration. We can do a narration style in film.
You can always do that, but why do you adopt that tone? Why can't you be more specific, and why can't you concretize the the journey and the character, the woman character and the child? Okay, and yeah, of course, that also comes as a
there is a series called You in Netflix, which in which Joe speaks to himself, also speaks to the characters. I thought of
I
had that reference.
Yeah, that is justified.
But of a psychopath, it is a psychopath. Here the sign.
Yeah, so यहाँ पे first of all, this third person character is looking at these characters, you know, the woman and the child from a distance. So we are not being, as an audience, as a reader, I'm not being able to go close to the characters. I'm not being able to empathize with them. I'm not being able to emotionally connect with them. I'm just assuming. Okay. So in cinema, what happens? There needs to be an identification with the characters, even if you don't like the characters. Okay, there has to be a kind of we must be able to relate to the characters. You know, even if we don't agree with their worldview, that's called empathy. Empathy is you can empathize with a serial killer without sharing his perversion. Okay, empathy means to be in his shoes, and the sympathy is something else. Sympathy is when you sympathize with a person's misfortune. Okay, so empathy is very important. Empathy is more important than sympathy. So you can make a story on a serial killer or a criminal or an antisocial who's really disgusting. Okay, so यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है कि me as a reader, I'm throughout looking at the and suddenly there's a whole lot of information is being revealed towards the end. The parents cannot come because they're dead because of a terrorist bombing. Okay,
it's also a question. It's not it's an opinion.
Yeah. So that too is ambiguous. So I'd have been more happy as an examiner. You know, I'm kind of a I'm not the real examiner, but I'm trying to be an examiner. Okay, कि ये अगर थोड़ा सा concretized होता, अगर थोड़ा ज़्यादा हम लोग would have understood these characters, I would have been happier. Okay, as a short story, it works definitely. Again, as I told you, your previous student, as a short story, it definitely works. But I'll judge you by your potential to be a filmmaker, not as a literary guy. Okay, so I would say I would think that ये तो अच्छा लिखा है, लेकिन it's more like literature. So you do well in literature, let him continue with literature. Why is he trying to come to cinema? Okay, because cinema is much more concrete in terms of audio and visual.
Yes, sir.
There has to be a lot of clarity. Okay,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
As a story, I don't have any problems. If I'm looking at it just as a short story.
Yes, sir.
So if you in your written paper, if you are given a picture, don't adopt this time. Even
Okay, sir.
even knowing that you have watched this show on Netflix, which I'll also see now that you have mentioned, definitely. But try to have as clarity as possible. Try to bring the audience close to the
Okay.
characters.
Okay,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So next is Tushar. Read out your stuff. Tushar.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Okay.
Yeah, you're audible. Introduce yourself.
Yes. Am I visible too?
Of course, you're visible.
Okay. So, sir, I'm from Jaipur, and I am finishing my graduation in psychology from Bangalore. So, yeah.
Okay.
Dhanwan smashes the glass against the wall. Amrita, terrified at what she witnessed, burst into crying, making Dhanwan regret his temper. It was the first time he got so infuriated, but he was saturated with Amrita's petulant demands. Dhanwan was a factory manager in the town of Tikampur near what is now called Gurugram. He came to this town as a young adult in search of a job. He found a job as a factory worker and slowly worked his way up to a manager. He was earning sufficiently well and decided to get married and settle here. But from the time they celebrated the second birthday of their son, Rinku, his wife Amrita has been continuously asking him to move to the capital of India to send Rinku to a better school when he grows up. It started as a small discussion. Um, it
Yeah.
started as yes. It started as a small discussion, but lately Amrita has become stubborn over moving to Delhi. A sharp cry disturbed Dhanwan's thoughts. Rinku was awakened by their fight. Amrita rushed into the room and started consoling her child. She was still slightly trembling from the depiction of violence by her husband. He had never done such a thing, but now she was fully convinced she would take her child away from this town. Actually, it wasn't so much about a better education as much as it was about international education. Some months ago, Amrita and Dhanwan invited Mohanlal, the factory owner, who lived in Delhi, and his family over lunch on Rinku's birthday. Mohanlal's wife and daughter condescendingly looked at the party's arrangement. When served with cake, they asked for a fork, and Amrita did not know the meaning of a fork. They passed a small sly smile in response. Amrita was not able to sleep for a couple of nights. The small sly smile, the small sly smile was imprinted on her mind as her heart was burning with fury. She made a resolution to make sure that her son will study in Delhi. So can you scroll down, please?
One second.
A small tear rolled down Amrita's cheek as she was reminded of her insult. She looked at Rinku and in a sudden rush of rage, she picked him up and started packing her clothes. With two suitcases and Rinku on her back, she rushed out of the house. Dhanwan was collecting his thoughts to apologize and saw Amrita rushing out of the house. Baffled and worried, he rushed after her. Taxi station was not far from her home, and she quickly sat in one headed for the railway station. She was sure to leave this town once and for all, and Dhanwan would be left with no choice but to comply. As they were approaching the railway station, Amrita's heart was pounding and figuring out logistical problems of staying in Delhi temporarily. They bought the ticket and rushed to the platform when they saw their train moving. They had hired a coolie for the suitcase who was rushing after them, but even with their best efforts, they could not make it in time. Amrita broke down on the platform in guilt and anguish over her frantic efforts. As for Rinku, it was the first time he came out of their home and saw a train. He started asking 1,000 questions about the train and the station, all filled with curiosity and wonder for the world. Amrita took a rickshaw for their way back home and was sitting silently and dejected. But Rinku was teeming with energy over all the new things he saw today. He kept nudging his mom about everything he could lay his eyes on while coming back. Amrita in that moment realized that even this town which she had started loathing triggered so many questions in her child's mind. She realized education also means partially satisfying this curiosity a child is born with. And even this town has a lot to offer for her child. With this resolution, she cheered up and started telling her child about all the affairs of the town with the same inquisitiveness Rinku was asking questions with.
Okay, good. I just want to read the first paragraph. Yeah. Dhanwan smashes the glass against the wall. Amrita, terrified at what she witnessed, burst into crying, making Dhanwan regret his temper. It was the first time he got so infuriated, but he was saturated with Amrita's petulant demands. Dhanwan was demands, basically the cause of the quarrel, the cause of the flare of temper. Dhanwan's temper is basically her insistence that they leave the city and move to Delhi, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so after that, you have very briefly gone back and written about Dhanwan, how he rose up. He came to this town as a young adult in search of a job, found a job as a factory worker, slowly working his way up to the manager. He was earning sufficiently well and decided to get married and settle here. And but from the time this was the second birthday of the son, Riku, his wife, has been mentioned. Okay, so I like the story. I like the story in the sense that it's about an ambitious woman. Ambitious in the sense that there are a lot of people, man and woman, whose ambition are misplaced. They feel that if I move to a bigger city, I'll gain a better education and I'll exposed to a wider kind of thing, without realizing wherever you stay, it could offer the same or the same varied and rich experience. Okay, and that's the rich experience. I mean, you might get a fancy degree in a big city, but that may not compensate for the rich experience and the varied experience that you may have in your own city, in your own small town. That is the realization that she has, isn't it? Is that so? Okay, so what I like in your story is the character arc. You know what's the character arc? ARC, character
Yes,
arc.
sir. Yes,
Okay, so tell me, what is the character arc?
Sir, how the character changes throughout the
How
story.
the character changes through the experience he or she undergoes. Okay, and it is because I think she misses the train. She misses the train, and it's because of the curiosity. For the first time, the child is suddenly exposed to an outside world, and he becomes curious. He starts asking 1,000 questions, hazar questions to the mother, and for the first time, that acts as a trigger, that acts as a catalyst. Okay, and the mother realizes, I mean, I have a responsibility towards my son. Doesn't mean I have to move to a different city. Okay, this city itself. So the change of heart, she comes back home, and there must be some kind of a reconciliation, and hopefully they would have a better life, and she wouldn't nag the husband anymore. Okay, because she has come to an understanding. She has come to some kind of a realization. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, I like the story. There's nothing much I can say, and the opening is very kind of grabbing. Dhanwan smashes the glass against the wall. Okay, and so when you start the story, you're starting the story in the middle of a crisis, in the middle of an action. Okay, and the audience is immediately hooked into the action. Then of course you're providing a little background to the character. Okay, and then again you're coming back to the present, and you're concentrating on the woman's activity, which is quite visual. The journey, the journey to the station, her realization, the boy's observation, etc., etc. So yeah, this is fair enough. And what I like again about your story is the plot time of the story is very less, a couple of hours only. Okay, which is desired in a short film or a short story. And what I especially like is the character arc or the
Sir,
realization.
I had a small question.
Yeah.
Right now in this class, I realized that they are looking for a story more in present and which can ideally make a good short film. I just wanted to ask: are they looking at the story with the intention of seeing how well can we write a screenplay?
No, not necessarily. What they generally try to evaluate is कि तुम्हारा audio visual sensibility कितना है. ठीक है ना? So if you're mentioning colors and you're describing the journey and then what the kid sees, his point of view. Okay, so you're sensitive to sight and sound. That is what they desire in a student, aspiring student.
But there's no need to mention any camera angles or zoom or anything.
No, absolutely not. Okay,
sir.
Don't be technical. Okay,
yes,
so that is one thing that they try to gauge in you, the audiovisual sensibilities, number one. Number two, character kitna interesting hai, और character तभी interesting बनेगा if a character, this is a input that I'm giving you to make a character interesting, the character needs to be have some kind of a disturbance. A character needs to be disturbed. Okay, and that disturbance causes the character to take certain decisions. Okay,
Yes,
and,
sir.
and undergo an experience, and that experience has to change the character.
Yes, sir.
That is a character transition of the character arc. So वो भी देखते हैं, because ultimately a film is not only about sight and sound, your audiovisual sensibilities, but it's also about characters, na? Because people remember, the audience remembers characters, but a filmmaker needs to deal with both characters, the character's journey, journey in the bigger sense of the term, thematic sense of the term, and also how he grapples with the audiovisual elements of a film.
Will they also look at how we format the story, as in there's an introduction,
Not
then
no, not necessarily,
there's a
not necessarily.
conflict and there's a
They are
climax?
not. No, 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 no. There has to be conflict, of course. There has to be conflict. What is the conflict? Conflict is the gap between the character's desire and the reality. That gap creates a conflict.
But not the exact format of.
No, 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 no. Forget about formatting and all. They are not even going to judge. So don't try to use fanciful words. Don't try to be smart with your language. Forget it's. Look, it could be grammatically wrong also. You can there can be spelling errors also. What they power of observation.
Okay, sir.
Power है कि नहीं? नहीं. Character going through an.
Yeah, Ranjan, can you hear it?
Yeah. Naresh, can we take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because this 7:32 I was going to interrupt in between. So we break for 7-8 minutes and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Back by 7:40.
7:40. Okay, we'll meet at 7:40. Okay. Yeah.
So we'll start with lesson. Lesson, are you around? Okay, start.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Just introduce briefly yourself and then start reading.
Yeah, my name is Lesin. I'm from Calicut, Kerala, and I have recently completed my graduation in Bachelor of Commerce. Yes.
Okay.
So start reading your work.
Looking outside from the train, watching beautiful scenarios with my son Yadav, who was just 7 years old, I didn't know where the journey leads me to. After the divorce with my husband and the pressure from my family for a remarriage, I decided to run away from my home to Mumbai. The train reached the station and a scene of people rushing, porters coming to pick luggage can be seen. One of them approached us for picking up our luggage. He picked it up and we followed him. It was a hot summer day and the train started moving. I kept staring at the busy station while holding Yadav and the porter holding the luggage. He then unloaded it to a horse cart. We continued our journey. I told the horse cart puller to take us to an apartment for renting out a room. I enjoyed the enormous view of the Mumbai city, so has Yadav. The horse cart puller stopped at a densely populated apartment. We rented out a studio apartment for ourselves. The thought about scarcity of money and Yadav's schooling.
Yeah, scroll up.
Can you scroll down?
Scroll down.
Yadav's schooling did worry me. The next day onwards, I went on to a search for a job while dropping Yadav in a daycare. I had to face so many job rejections and my savings were running out. One day, as I sat on a tea shop, I noticed a handicapped person trying to sell lottery tickets for a living. Out of pity, I bought a ticket from him. Some days later, when the lottery ticket results were announced, I went on to check the results and unlucky, I didn't win any prize. Then again, after some days, I happened to visit the same tea shop and happened to see the same lottery ticket seller selling his ticket near tea shop. He then lends me a ticket and told me this ticket will hit the bull's price and that I will be the next crorepati millionaire bracket. I did laugh at that one. As I was short of money, I said no to him. I lent him a 10 rupees note as a help. He told me he will be keeping the ticket with him safely in case I return back to buy it before the date of result declaration. Out of confidence shown by him on this ticket, I brought it to test my final luck. The day of result announcement came and I didn't make it. Every failure was knocking at my door. This thought made me start crying and Yadav ran over to me. I wiped my tears and told him that everything was okay. Then I hugged him. No miracles did happen to me after that. I got a small job and admitted Yadav into a well-known school. The lesson of life taught me it was not about the big bets in life, but the small happinesses of every day is the biggest lottery I would get in my life.
Yeah, beautiful. I think it's a beautiful story. Yeah, the first, yeah, it's a beautiful story about dreams and aspirations and the realization that life does not turn out to be as you think of, but then you come to terms with life and you continue with your life. Okay, yeah, because all of us have huge dreams and ambitions, and we may not, most of us are not being able to meet our dreams. Okay, and we become sad also, but there's this realization, life has to continue, and we continue, and we are happy with the little things of life. That is what the story, that is the point that the story makes. And what I really liked about your story, the plot, is the introduction of that lottery seller. For a moment, I felt ki she's going to win the lottery, and all her problems would be solved. But that would have been, very bad. I mean, that would be kind of, अरे यार इतना easily ऐसा थोड़ी होता है, ठीक है ना? Then again, she interacts with the ticket seller for the second time, and this time, I'm sure she's going to win the lottery. Again, I felt ki, अरे यार, this is a very bad story if she happens to win the lottery. But as an audience, I felt ki the writer is adopting a shortcut, okay, to make her life better. But again, the second time also, she does not win the. So you build up the expectation, you build up the curiosity of the audience, okay, in relation to the tickets, okay, and the lottery ticket. And then you are playing hide and seek with the audience, which is desired in a good story. Okay, so the audience becomes very curious. The audience also starts rooting for the protagonist, empathizing with the protagonist, sympathizing with the protagonist. कि भैया वो जरूर जीतेगा, जीत ले यार, जीत ले, kind of, but you dashing the hopes of both the characters and the audience, the reader, and both the character and the audience arrive at this realization, fundamental realization about life, as try to draw your happiness from the little things. Not everybody becomes a king, not everybody becomes Steve Jobs, okay, or Steven Spielberg, okay, na? So one has to be happy with and make do and somehow continue with a little happiness. So it's quite good. It's a good story, and of course, being a short story, you cannot detail the struggle, how she struggles. Okay, but there are certain problems I have with your story. Those problems have to deal with the certain fallacies which I felt. Have you ever been to Bombay? Lesson?
No, sir, I'm from Kerala and
Okay, you've
I
never been to
aspire
Bombay.
to
Okay,
go to
so
Bombay one day.
so no matter how much money a woman has, no matter how much money a man has, he or she just cannot arrive at Bombay with the kid and try out the luck, try out his or her luck. It's not so easy. Bombay is a very
So I
difficult
have
place.
heard a lot. I'm sorry to interrupt, sir. So I have heard a lot of stories about Bombay. That from that stories, I inspired and wrote this one because
And,
everyone goes, yeah, everyone goes for an actor to be a don or something from
yeah.
Kerala. That's
The city
I'm
of
saying,
dreams
sir.
is considered the city of dreams, which do not work out
Yeah,
for most people. That is the
yes, sir.
reality. Number one. Number two, matlab, if somebody wants to come to Bombay and try out his luck, okay, quite often I receive telephone calls from young people. They want to try out their luck in film industry. I said, भैया जरूर आओ, लेकिन एक साल का पैसा लेके आओ. एक साल you have to survive without getting a job, without getting any assignment. Okay, एक साल का अगर पैसा है तो आ जाओ, आराम से आ जाओ. हाँ, और रेंट देना पड़ेगा, 20,000 25,000 तुम्हें रेंट देना पड़ेगा. So you have to think, if you have that kind of money, please, you're most welcome to Bombay. Okay, and your character, woman with a kid, you know, suddenly arrives in Bombay. Okay, she's a very brave woman. I admire her courage. Lekin, there is no Tonga in Bombay, man. So that is, she will take a taxi. Now, this is a huge creative liberty that you have taken. Don't do these things. क्योंकि ये भी हम लोग देखेंगे, अरे ये तुम न्यूयॉर्क में जा रहा है कोई, वो कैरेज में थोड़ी, न्यूयॉर्क एयरपोर्ट, जॉन एफ कैनेडी एयरपोर्ट से उतर के वो थोड़ी हॉर्स ड्रॉन कैरेज में थोड़ी वो जाएगा ना, वो तो टैक्सी बुलाएगा ना. So not only in Bombay, any city in the टोंगा है बॉम्बे में, लेकिन टोंगा में लोग घूमने के लिए, मरीन ड्राइव में घूमने के लिए जाते हैं, अक्षरा बीच घूमने के लिए जाते हैं, रिक्रिएशन के लिए जाते हैं, एक्चुअल जर्नी के लिए नहीं जाते हैं. और वो होटल में आ जाती है, कोई बोर्डिंग हाउस में आ जाता है, उसी दिन वो नेगोशिएट करके she gets an accommodation. Real estate is bloody expensive in Bombay. So these are the logical fallacies that I felt that your story had. Because you had mentioned Bombay, had it been some other city, I wouldn't have had so much of problem. Again, Bombay is a difficult city. Bombay is a very difficult city.
That's a liberty I took, sir.
But liberty का मतलब ये भी नहीं है कि तो you take a leap of faith, kind of. So थोड़ा सा you should also pull down your kind of creative license. ठीक है ना? You have to be realistic. देखो, क्योंकि कोई भी लोग whoever is familiar with Bombay, इतना easy थोड़ी होता है. Tonga is a absolute. I mean, Tonga तो होता ही नहीं है. हाँ, Tonga कहीं पे भी तुम्हें नहीं मिलेगा. ठीक है, मिलेगा वो घूमने के लिए सी बीच मिलेगा. Otherwise, I think it's a pretty good story of a woman's struggle and the expectations that you build up both in the character and also in the audience, and you're dashing those expectations, which is very, very realistic. Very, very realistic.
Yes,
okay.
I took the first person. Yeah, I took
that is another thing. That is another thing I must warn you against. I forgot. Okay. For the written exam, don't write in first person. Okay, don't be the character yourself. Okay, just from a neutral point of view, you look at the mother and the child. There's another student who had written, the guy from Calcutta. He himself had become the character, observing these two characters, the woman and the child. Okay, so you are like the camera. You are like an invisible camera. You can see everybody, but nobody can see. So your presence as an individual should not be there. Okay. So वो first person narrative भी नहीं चलेगा.
Sir, sir, I want to explain how I want to visualize the frame, the film.
No, Samya, don't do that now. Let somebody else read the story. We have given you the time slot.
Okay, sir.
Let Dheeraj Wadhwa read out the story, please. Dheeraj Wadhwa, are you here? Please.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Just introduce yourself.
Yes, sir. So I'm Dheeraj Wadhwa. I'm from Bhopal, and I graduated in computer science engineering from Noida this year. And now I'm currently doing the classroom coaching for FTII at Craft.
Okay.
Delhi. Yeah. So we are on the streets of Lucknow. There isn't too much of a traffic, and few auto rickshaws are waiting in hope of some passengers. A horse carriage carrying Madhu and her son Aditya, who seems a bit terrified, passes by. We can see a lot of suitcases as if someone is leaving the city. Aditya is confused about what is happening, but is immature enough to understand so. Madhu, who is an employee at a government bank, has got her transfer orders. They are supposed to relocate to Ahmedabad. Madhu calls her husband, but as usual, he doesn't pick up. Even on this important day, he is not there to drop them to the railway station. Actually, Akash, her husband...
Just a moment. Let me get the plot. We are on the streets of Lucknow. There isn't too much of traffic, and a few auto rickshaws are waiting in hope of some passengers. Horse carrying Madhu and her son Aditya seems a bit terrified. Passes by, we can see a lot of situations. Aditya is confused. Aditya, the son, about what is happening, but is mature enough to understand so. Mature enough to understand so.
Madhu, that's mistake.
Madhu, who's an employee at a government bank, has got a transfer order. They're supposed to relocate to Ahmedabad. Madhu calls her husband, but okay, chalo, say paro.
Madhu calls her husband, but as usual, he doesn't pick up. Even on this important day, he is not there to drop them to the railway station. Actually, Akash, her husband, is an alcoholic, and the whole family is tired of him and his habits. He usually misses out on family matters and has got ignorant over the last few years. But it seems Madhu still hopes that he might come and bid them a goodbye. Madhu tells Aditya that his father is busy and won't be coming today, but we know that she wants him to. They reach a railway station where a lot of coolies gather around them, asking if any kind of help is required. Madhu bargains and settles for rupees 100 with one of the coolies. All three of them start walking towards the platform. It is time for the train to depart. So Madhu agrees of getting Aditya a comic book which he was demanding as soon as they reach the railway station. Both of them are waiting in front of their coach in hopes that Aditya will come. We can see Aditya playing with that not Aditya will come, that like his father will come. We can see Aditya playing with his binoculars, which he was carrying throughout in his pockets. He is looking over different shops and keeps asking Madhu every few minutes that he can buy stuff. Can he buy stuff? Madhu is still looking around and scolds Aditya for disturbing her. The coolies stand silently seeing all this drama going on. Now it is only 5 minutes for the train to leave, and Coolie asks if he should set their luggage below their seats. Madhu tells her to do so. She picks up Aditya and stands in front of the gate of their coach. We can constantly hear the station announcements, and now only 2 minutes are left for the train to leave. Aditya gazes over to a snacks corner using his binoculars and sees a man buying kachoris. He wants them too. He asks Madhu, but she says it's time we should get in. Actually, Aditya notices that it is Akash who is buying those kachoris and shouts Papa. We can instantly see a bit of happiness on Madhu's faces while Akash is coming towards them carrying a packet of kachoris for them. We hear the train horn and it is time now. Akash runs a bit to catch them and hand over the kachoris to Aditya. He kisses him and says goodbye. Akash hugs Madhu and tells her to take care of herself as well as Aditya. Madhu gets in the train and train leaves.
Okay, acha. Just come to the first paragraph. Madhu calls her and doesn't, even on this important day, he's not there to drop them to the railway station. Actually, Akash, her husband, is an alcoholic and the whole family is tired of him and his habits. He usually misses out on family matters and has got ignored. But it seems Madhu still hopes that he might come and bid them goodbye. तो इसका मतलब ये है कि ये जो mother and son ये लोग जो स्टेशन में आए हुए हैं तो घर से आए हुए हैं है ना जाने के लिए तो घर से जब निकल रहे थे तो हस्बैंड क्या दारू पी के सो रहा था क्या
No sir, he was at his work.
अच्छा he was at his work अच्छा have you mentioned that somewhere
No sir.
That you have not mentioned ना तो वहाँ पे वो मुझे लगा कि यार मम्मी और उसका बेटा उसकी वो स्टेशन में आ रहा है हस्बैंड क्यों नहीं आया ठीक है अल्कोहलिक ये इन्फॉर्मेशन हमें मिल गया ठीक है सो so the marriage is not on the rocks ऐसा नहीं है कि the only problem that they have कि that the husband is an alcoholic and forgetful and the family members मतलब वो husband का parents भी होंगे and they're tired of him. He's quite wayward whereas the woman seems to be quite focused and she's locating to a different city and she's there with the son but the husband has not come and her husband of course comes towards the end and kachori वगैरह खरीदता है और बेटे को देता है and there's a family party. Yeah, this is good. I mean, it's not very dramatic. Okay, you have captured the moment. The moment is basically the journey, the last, her journey to the station and waiting for the husband and waiting for the train to take off. Okay, and the arrival of the husband. So you have captured the moment in all its poignancy and in all its emotion and it's visual also. I don't have much problems with the story as such. It's just that when you're writing, don't write we are on the streets of Lucknow, and we can see this. We are, matlab dekho kya hai? Everything can be seen. Okay, so just write the streets of Lucknow, the crowded streets of Lucknow. There isn't too much of there isn't too much of traffic and a few auto rickshaws are waiting in hope of some passengers. The streets of Lucknow. So don't write we hear, we see, I see. Yeah, we, I, ये नहीं रहना चाहिए. Everything can be seen, everything can be heard in a story or a screenplay or a the treatment or short story, whatever you have written. So you don't have to mention, अलग से underline करने का जरूरत नहीं है. Okay. Or and you have also written it in present tense, which is good. And of course, there's a lot of interiority in the woman's mind. Okay, and how to externalize that. That is not the purpose of this session. That would come later. But as a story, you have got a hang, and you have described and the character का भी वो जो टर्मोइल है कि मेरा हस्बैंड अरे बेकार यार अल्कोहलिक है, वो आएगा कि नहीं आएगा, लेकिन वो आ जाता है, and life has to move on. She has to relocate to a different city with a child, and the husband will also continue with his alcoholic ways. Maybe tomorrow is a different day, they might divorce also, so that lies outside the scope of the story. But this is quite a very it's almost like a slice of life, which is quite good. Okay, so this is my observation. Yeah.
So quickly we will take the Arnab Das. That will be the last one. Arnab.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you see me?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Hello. I am from Kolkata. I did my graduation in mathematics, and I have a diploma in finance and painting. Currently, I am having a small business in mathematical statistics. I am running, and that's it.
Okay.
Reading, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Shreyoshi has always been a happy student, and she has never been of nagging kind in her childhood days. The only thing she always feared was being left alone. In school days, when she was about 3 to 4 years, she never waited inside the empty campus after school was over. As soon as the bell used to ring, she ran, jumped out of the campus to outside gate and stayed with the Darwanji, the gateman. Almost many days in a week, her parents came late, and she always complained about this fact. As she grew, this very fear got cloaked over the growing activities of life. But whenever she was in a lab in college doing some work, she always kept watch if at least a friend or teacher is present inside those big government halls of laboratories. Only one friend noticed it and stayed with her in college and in university, but she never shared it with anyone else. This emptiness, this fear that she experiences, but this friend somehow felt. As the life moved on, this friendship turned to a relation of marriage, and she finally felt she will never have to wait along anywhere alone. Few years passed by. They have a child now, and Shreyoshi has always been protective about him. The family has been prosperously growing. Time shows its time shows its displeasure uh, most cruelly than anyone. Mainak passed away untimely. It was like the very art she created shattered in pieces. It took her more than 3 years to be normal. She has been a working mother and maintaining family, child, work, maintaining family, child, work as has not been easy. Mainak's family is very liberal and friendly to Shreyoshi, and they insisted her to do a second marriage, which she was dead against. But she had to give in for the child's sake and did a second marriage. She was clear to her husband that she won't be able to get physical too early, as she is still recovering from the jolt. The Persian was educated, well established, and it seemed he understood her. After a few months of her marriage, she started getting mentally abused. The husband started asking for the insurance money Mainak has saved for Shreyoshi and the child. There has been quarrels almost every now and then. She started getting physically abused, but she was unable to do anything as the fear she had in childhood will creep in and weaken her. One day, the person started abusing her child. She couldn't resist this, as she was making her son sleep and she was looking at him, deciding that she can't let his life ruined just because of her fear of being alone. In few days, she gathered courage to arrange everything. Stealthily, at midnight, she came off from the house without anyone's notice and went to the station. Her all baggage was with her, and she's still not sure about her decision. There is a strong dilemma inside her. She was standing on station and looked at the gate straight at back, but she cannot let her child suffer for her emptiness. Her son is the only symbol and part of Moina, which she cannot let win.
Yeah, okay. So we get the plot, we get the story. देखो यहाँ पे मेरा जो observation है कि most of the stories that were read out today, except the very first story, okay, and your story, your story covers a huge part of the man's life, the woman's life. You know, from her childhood when she was a student and when she was in college or school, and then she got married, and her and you have introduced her fear of loneliness, fear of being left alone, which you have not explored further. जो तुमने फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ में तुमने उसको एक डर दिलवाया कि शी इज स्कैर्ड ऑफ बीइंग लेफ्ट अलोन. So I thought as a reader or as a viewer, you're going to build on that. You know that suddenly she's left alone, and something will happen around that situation. Yeah, Purushottam, you've raised your hand. कुछ बोलना चाहते हो?
No, sir. Yeah, I am the only one being left alone without my story.
Because I'll give you the answer. A, the timing was 4 o'clock. B, the words were 500. So you send it after 4 o'clock. That is A, and B, you had written in a words of 800 plus. You got my point? So you need to follow the norms. Otherwise, we will not be able to include. Is it clear to you?
Yeah, 800 words is too long. Yeah.
Because 836 words.
No.
I clearly mentioned not more than 500, and it is a 4 o'clock. So you have to follow the norms if you want to be having input. I'm sorry to say that, but we had to follow certain things. There's nothing against you, but you need to follow the norms.
Yeah, because examination paper में भी तुम्हें वो space दे देते हैं वो लोग. वो space के अंदर तुम्हें.
Nobody is going to attempt read that. There will be a limited space. You need to understand that. There is an answer sheet provided by FTII entrance exam. You cannot bring an answer sheet from your home.
You cannot take extra answer sheet.
You need to get into the habit of writing into limited words. You did not understood that, so that is why your story will not be included. You got my point? So try to understand when we say something, it is for your benefit. Okay? Chaliye.
Okay. So yes, Arnab, coming back to your story covers एक major problem है कि in the very first paragraph you have introduced a problem which she has of being left alone. She is scared, which you have not followed up. You built up the curiosity, but you have not followed that up. That's a major problem. Okay, with the story. Okay, number one. Number two, another problem that I have, you have covered a huge span of her life. Nothing wrong in that. Okay, in that case, a short story will not be able to do justice to that huge span in her life. For this, 500 words is not enough. You need a longer format. You need a longer format to get into certain specific problems, certain situations, certain problematic situations in a life. Only then the story becomes very interesting.
That is why I couldn't write many things.
So तुम्हारा जो this I'm telling to everybody कि अगर 500 words तुम्हें मिल रहा है या तुम्हें short story लिखने के लिए बोला जा रहा है, always try to plot time जो होना चाहिए ना should be as less as possible. Maybe a couple of hours, maybe one day, maybe a week. ठीक है, तुम back stories provide कर सकते हो, ठीक है, so that the audience can understand the character a little better. But the actual plot, there are too many things happening in your story. So what I'm trying to say, I've got nothing against that, nothing against the content of your story. It does not justify the format.
I understand, sir.
Yes, number one, number two, वो जो picture जो है, जो दो picture जो तुम्हें दिया गया था, ठीक है ना, वो तुम just almost like a lip service तुम touch करके चले जा रहे हो. मतलब your story should be built around that. Isn't it?
Okay.
So most of the stories which are read out by the students.
एक mistake मैंने किया है कि वहाँ पे जो midnight लिखा था ना वो morning होगा actually. It should be in the morning.
वो तो technical thing. So your story should have been written around these images. So it comes just like the sun ने दिया, चलो इसको तो थोड़ा सा mention करना है, चलो touch and go kind of हो जा रहा है.
Okay.
तो ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. और ये बहुत ही crystallized होना चाहिए. Any story that you write has to be very, very crystallized. Even in feature films nowadays, a feature film story nowadays, starts from more to near the end, not from away from the end. Feature film का world भी अभी धीरे-धीरे कम होते जा रहा है. Okay. For that we have serials, we have web series, we have serials which can cover a huge span of a character's life. Not the short story format, not even a feature film.
It should be very, very particular.
एक moment को लेकर milk करो, milk that moment.
Okay.
ठीक है ना?
और कुछ प्रॉब्लम है?
और कुछ प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, प्रेजेंट टेंस में लिखो, और character has to have problems, otherwise you don't have conflict. Has to be there. The conflict arises out of the problem, of course. And so तुम जब पढ़ रहे थे मुझे लग रहा था as if you were in a hurry. It's more like a narration than a exciting plot. I could understand it has the potential of excitement, an exciting plot, but you're almost in a hurry.
It is due to the writing style. It is due to the writing style.
Not the writing style, because of too many incidents. First marriage, the husband dies, then the in-law say, "You please get married." No, I don't want to get married, but she gets married. Too many things happening. तुम एक को लो ना, एक को लेके देखो. Yours is like a river. Cinema is like a bank. ये याद रखो. Whether it's a short film or a feature film, it's not a river. रिवर का किनारा ढूंढो, वो किनारा तुम्हारा कहानी है. और पूरा रिवर का कहानी बोलोगे तो तुम्हें उपन्यास लिखना पड़ेगा या टेलीविजन सीरीज बनाना पड़ेगा. There's nothing wrong in that, of course, but a self-contained episode or self-contained short film or feature film, it's the bank of a river.
Got it.
The kinara of the river, not the whole river. What you have written is the whole river.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So, just before we end it, also everybody need to understand that we have 26 students in this group. And in the beginning, when you people were joining, we told it very clear, the maximum student would be 50. So now you are lucky that 26 people are there. And you are more lucky because rest of the people are sleeping. They don't prefer to come here despite paying their 10 or 15,000 rupees. So we will be able to take up few cases only. Only thing what you need to understand is the input the sir is giving, so that you take care of those things when you develop your ideas. Not necessarily if the 26 people would have submitted here less than 500 words and before 4 o'clock, we should have been able to take it. So don't take it personally. It would be just whatever could be covered would be covered, and that's it. So next time we'll see that, so you get the idea how the things need to be written down. Not exactly that whether my thing was considered or not, or my thing was read or not. It could have been any 10 thing, irrespective of who was covered and who was not. So what you need to understand is the format. What is not supposed to be done, okay, and what is supposed to be done.
Every format has its own parameters, so you have to work within those parameters. So you have to understand parameters क्या है format का, ठीक है? उसके अंदर तुम्हें operate करना पड़ेगा.
So that's fine. Ranjan, I'll discuss with you for tomorrow's thing.
Yeah.
You can sign it off, and I'll just launch the poll, which will be attendance for the.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sure. Thanks a lot. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So I can leave now. I can leave now.
You can leave.
Okay.
So 11 of 13 have already pressed the button. Kindly press the button, whatever is your intention. It doesn't matter. It is just the attendance for us. So that's it. So if you're still around, kindly do it so that I could stop the thing and I could. So done. Okay.
Naresh sir, 1 minute.
Okay. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Sir, I had already sent you. The last time you took about PSA, I was not able to.
I have received it. Give me some time. I would look into it and then I would respond. Okay.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Okay, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Bye bye.